What's up, you glorious bastards? Welcome back for another deep dive with yours truly.
And me, obviously.
Right, my esteemed colleague, the brainiac to my bullshit.
Mm.
Before we unleash a torrent of fucks and other delightful expletives, I gotta give you a heads up, you delicate flowers. Today, we're tackling the Mongol Empire, those horse-riding, skull-crushing badasses who painted half the world red with blood.
Imagine an empire so vast it would make the Roman Empire look like a tiny fucking backyard. From the Pacific Ocean to Eastern Europe. They even dipped their toes in the Arctic and took a swing at Southeast Asia.
No shit. But before we get into the whole Genghis Khan bloodbath, let's rewind a bit. What was the scene before this dude came along?
It was a clusterfuck, all right.
A total
A
clusterfuck.
chaotic mess of tribes at each other's throats constantly. You had the Tatars, the Mongols,
Bunch of others.
a whole bunch of other groups scrapping over every damn thing.
Resources.
Glory.
Women.
You name it. And to make matters worse, you had the Jin dynasty, those crafty bastards, playing them against each other like puppets.
So basically a free-for-all until Genghis Khan showed up and said, enough of this bullshit.
Not exactly.
Oh.
Genghis wasn't always the all-powerful Khan we know and, admire.
Fear.
He started as Temujin.
Temujin. Who the hell is that?
A nobody.
A nobody who became Genghis Khan. Tell me more about this Temujin to Genghis glow-up.
Think of the Mongolian steppe as a giant game of Risk.
Okay, I'm following.
And Temujin was a master player.
Ruthless.
Oh, absolutely. He made alliances, betrayed his rivals, and won battle after battle.
Sounds messy.
It was a long, brutal climb to the top, plenty of backstabbing and bloodshed. But in 1206,
This is where it gets good, doesn't it?
he finally united all the Mongol tribes under his rule and became Genghis Khan.
Yeah, that's a Machiavellian shit.
Yeah.
This Genghis dude was one clever motherfucker. I bet he wasn't afraid to get his hands dirty.
He was ruthless and ambitious, but also
Smart.
very smart. He realized that to maintain power, he couldn't just be a greedy asshole.
So share the spoils.
He had to share the spoils of war with his warriors.
Instead of hoarding all the loot, pretty fucking smart, actually. Keep your soldiers paid.
Exactly. That's how he built his formidable army. And speaking of the army, let's talk about the Mongol war machine.
Well-oiled, horse-powered.
They were organized, disciplined. They used a decimal system.
Oh, what?
A decimal system, dividing their forces into units of 10, 100,
Thousands.
1,000, and 10,000.
Like a well-oiled, horse-powered killing machine.
Precisely. But they weren't just about brute force. They were masters of logistics, intelligence gathering,
Adapting.
and adapting enemy technology. If they needed to take down a city, they'd figure out how to build siege weapons,
By stealing the secrets.
often by learning from the people they'd conquered.
So they weren't just mindless brutes. They actually used their fucking brains.
Absolutely. They were adaptable and strategic, which is one of the reasons they were so successful.
Okay, let's talk about their world domination tour. These guys went on a rampage across Asia, even into Europe.
Persia, Russia, Hungary, they all got a taste of the Mongol fury.
They were unstoppable.
They swept through Asia like a plague of locusts, leaving a trail of destruction.
Any particular examples?
One of the most infamous, the sack of Baghdad in 1258. It was a bloodbath, one of the most brutal events in history.
Jesus Christ, that's heavy shit. But hey, all good things must come to an end, right? Even empires built on a mountain of skulls.
They were great at conquering, not so great at staying united.
What happened?
They had all the classic problems of empires, succession disputes,
Civil War.
civil wars, internal power struggles, and then
Oh, don't tell me.
the Black Death,
Ah, fuck, of course.
which ripped through their ranks like a fucking wildfire.
The ultimate hangover.
After a decades-long bender of bloodshed and conquest.
So what's left of this party now? Did the Mongols just vanish into thin air, or did they leave some shit behind?
Their empire might be gone, but their influence lingers. They changed demographics, contributed to the rise of Moscow, and introduced Europe to the wonders of the East.
For better or worse?
For better or worse. They also left behind a legacy of brutality and innovation that still fascinates us today.
All right, so there you have it, folks. The Mongols were a bunch of ruthless, brilliant, and ultimately self-destructive bastards who left a permanent mark on history. But before we go any deeper into this, let's take a quick piss break.
Be right back, you magnificent degenerates.
All right, so where were we? Ah, yes, the Mongols' battlefield antics.
Yeah, those bastards were like a medieval SWAT team. only way more fucked up. We talked about their organization and shit, but what about their actual fighting style?
They were masters of adaptability. Think about it.
Okay, I'm listening. Lay it on me.
One minute they'd be raining down arrows from horseback. The next they'd be feigning a retreat, suckering their enemies into a trap.
Sneaky motherfuckers. So were these guys invincible? Did anyone ever kick their asses?
Their track record wasn't perfect. Remember those failed invasions of Japan?
Oh yeah, what happened there?
Typhoons, stubborn samurai, and maybe a dash of divine intervention stopped them. Karma's a bitch, huh? So even the Mongols had their limits. But let's shift gears a bit. What about their legacy? I mean, yeah, they were brutal as hell, but was it all just bad?
That's where it gets interesting. The Mongols, for all their brutality, were surprisingly tolerant for their time.
Tolerant, you're kidding, right?
They had this policy of religious freedom, pretty damn progressive for the 13th century. They also facilitated trade along the Silk Road.
Hold on, are you saying these savage conquerors were responsible for good shit?
It's a bit more complicated than that. But their empire did have some unintended positive consequences. Think about it. Cultural exchange, technological advancements, new fashion trends made their way across Eurasia, thanks to the Mongols.
Damn. Who knew the Mongols were such trendsetters? But let's not sugarcoat it. These guys were brutal as fuck. Millions of deaths. Their reputation for ruthlessness, well, is pretty well earned.
Absolutely. The scale of violence and destruction they unleashed, it's horrifying. They were masters of psychological warfare. They used terror to break their enemies before a battle even began.
Like that whole surrender or we'll slaughter every man, woman, and child tactic. Effective, but not subtle. It's crazy how a small group of nomadic warriors managed to create such a vast empire. What was their secret?
A combination of factors. Military prowess, obviously. But their adaptability was key. They were willing to incorporate new technologies, new tactics. They weren't afraid to learn from their enemies.
So brains and brawn. Like a medieval version of a tech startup, always disrupting the status quo. But unlike those Silicon Valley pussies, the Mongols weren't afraid to get blood on their hands.
And leadership played a role, too. Genghis Khan was incredibly charismatic, ruthless. He united the Mongol tribes and gave his warriors a sense of purpose. And his successors, like Ogadai and Kublai Khan, were also skilled, both as administrators and military strategists.
So vision, leadership, and organization, not just mindless hacking and slashing. It's a shame they couldn't hold it together in the long run.
Internal conflicts and succession crises, the classic downfall of empires.
Conquered the world, but couldn't conquer their own ambitions and rivalries. Classic. It's like the ultimate family drama, but with a lot more bloodshed.
A cautionary tale. Even the most powerful empires, they're built on shaky ground.
Deep, man. Deep. But hey, at least we can laugh at their misfortunes from the comfort of our modern world, right?
Speaking of the modern world, let's talk about the Mongol influence on society today.
Besides those Genghis Khan-themed restaurants, I'm drawing a blank. Any lasting influence? Or is it all just ancient history? All right, so we've talked about those horse-loving psychopaths, their insane tactics, and the shit show they left behind. But here's a thought.
I'm all ears, or whatever's left of them after this conversation.
What was it actually like to live under Mongol rule? Constant terror? Or were there some perks to being part of history's biggest empire?
Depended on who you were, where you lived. It was a mixed bag, honestly.
Mixed bag how?
On one hand, you got violence, heavy taxes, forced labor, the whole shebang.
Sounds peachy.
But on the other hand, the Mongols did bring stability, order to lots of regions. That helped trade, even cultural exchange. Not all sunshine and rainbows, but...
So not all bad. Like, if your head wasn't on the chopping block, maybe you got to enjoy some fancy spices or silk from the Silk Road.
Exactly. And don't forget the religious tolerance.
Oh, yeah, right. Those guys didn't give a shit what god you prayed to.
More concerned with power and taxes than converting people.
Pragmatic as fuck. Religion's cool and all, but cash is king, am I right? But were there any winners under Mongol rule? Or was it just lose-lose for everyone but the Mongol elite?
Some groups actually did well. Merchants, for example.
Really? How so?
The Pax Mongolica. That period of peace and stability, it allowed safe travel, trade across vast distances flourished. And the Mongols, they actually promoted commerce.
As long as they got their cut, of course.
Naturally.
Makes sense. Thriving economy, more taxes. More bling for the cons.
They weren't so different from our politicians today.
Just a bit more direct with their wealth redistribution programs.
An interesting parallel. But yeah, the Mongols, masters of pragmatism and adaptation. They got that a prosperous empire equals a powerful one. They weren't afraid to embrace new ideas, tech, whatever got the job done.
Brutal conquerors, savvy administrators, and accidental globalization pioneers. Who knew?
History is full of surprises, isn't it?
Full of them. So, I think we pretty much wrung this topic dry. Any final wisdom before we bounce?
The Mongol Empire might be ancient history, but it still matters today. Brutal, yes, but they were also brilliant, adaptable. In a way, they were agents of change. A reminder that history's never simple. Black and white, it's full of shades of gray. And sometimes, even the worst empires leave behind a pretty complex legacy.
Deep shit, man. Well, there you have it, you glorious degenerates. The Mongols. Bloodthirsty, brilliant, and gone, but not forgotten. We dove into their messed up world, saw their military genius, and uncovered their impact on history. But remember, folks, history's more than just names and dates. It's a wild ride of sex, violence, and power struggles. And sometimes it takes a couple assholes like us to make sense of it all. Until next time, keep it real, keep it irreverent, and keep exploring the fucked up tapestry of history. Cheers.